Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Welcome back to the Coaching Coordinator Network. In today's episode from our clinic series, we're diving into the heart of defensive success, creating negative plays and building a dominant front. This segment is from Siddiq Haynes, the run game coordinator and defensive line coach at UTSA, delivered at Lawrence First and Goal 2025. Under his guidance, the Roadrunners have finished the top 5 nationally in both sacks and tackles for loss in back-to-back seasons. And that's not a coincidence, it's an identity. In this segment, Coach Haynes unpacks how UTSA builds its defensive mindset and structure from the ground up, starting with the triangle of toughness, translating run game dominance into pass rush success, and developing defensive linemen who can play fast, vertical, and disruptive. Whether you're a defensive line coach or just want to get better understanding the keys to backfield havoc, this segment is packed with takeaways you can apply right away. Let's get into it. Here's our segment with Coach Siddiq Haynes.
You guys, everything at Abercrombie is 25% off right now. I seriously can't remember the last time they had a sale this good. And if you're like me, your cart is about to turn into a massive haul. Use code SPOTIFYAF for an extra 15% off through March 31st, 2025. Valid in US and Canada. Excludes clearance and gift cards. See details online. 25% off everything is valid in US and Canada through March 31st, 2025. Excludes clearance and gift cards. Online price reflects discount.
Since you're new to H&R Block, we'll look at your returns from the last 3 years for any money your last guy might have missed for free.
I could get money back from last year?
You could. We'll find any mistakes.
Could have really used that 2 years ago when I dated that mistake for 5 months.
Don't leave money on the table. Switch to H&R Block and get a free Second Look review. Second Look is included at no additional cost with the purchase of tax preparation. Results vary. All tax situations are different. Fees apply if you have us file an amended return.
Siddiq Haynes, like you said, defensive run game coordinator and defensive line coach. Today we're going to be talking about TFLs leading the sacks. We run a base 3-4 defense here. And I'll just be explaining, the mentality, the philosophy of playing great run defense. Obviously, that being number one. But how that can translate and lead to sacks. To begin with, just as myself, I'll go into us here at UTSA, but just my coaching philosophy, man, I want to give these kids tools that they can use not only when it comes to football and on the field, but also in life. So anything that I give them as far as tools to help them with the game, I always try to make sure that they can take those same lessons and same tools and put them in their real life. So just understanding that way of coaching, understand the person that you're coaching, just as a philosophy, I want them to be able to use the tools, not just for football, but also for life. Jumping right into it. You see our brand so much, the 210 Triangle of Toughness, working for one of the best in the country and Coach Traylor. These aren't just words that you see on our triangle. I can't talk about TFLs and sacks without referencing the triangle. He believes, first and foremost, as being a part of the triangle, a defensive side of the ball, he doesn't want the ball to be ran on us. Equally, on the offensive side of the ball, he stresses about being able to run the ball as an identity and then throw it when you need to. And just with us on defense and how we kind of implement some of those words into their everyday life, it's also how we play, right? And the one that we touch on so much is physical toughness, right? You can't be physically strong if you're not mentally strong. You can't be physically strong if you're not mentally strong. So bringing that into the game, being physically tough, it obviously helps you be successful. But then also, man, just your passion and your perfect effort, right? Your perfect effort. That's one thing that you control. So just touching on the triangle of toughness and what we firmly and truly believe in, we implement all of those words in our everyday life, whether that's coaching on the field or off the field. But getting into the whole TFLs and the sacks, that graphic right there, it's something that kind of gives you our identity of what we've been trying to do here at UTSA. We're number one in sacks per game over the last 2 years and number one in TFLs per game the last 2 years. And if you look at the totals, for total sacks, we're number 4 in the FBS over that course of time and number 2 in TFLs. So it's our identity. It's something that we believe in. You eliminate the big plays from this year as we always deep dive into how we can be better. We're ranking right up there and some of the best in the nation. But those two things right there, getting teams behind the line of scrimmage in the run game and then being able to get home when we're talking about rushing the passer, that's something that I feel like is a recipe for success. And if you can get really good at doing both of those things, those other stats that you really rely on, points per game, obviously being the biggest one, making sure those come down. But just overall, it accounts for some great team defense. We're an attack, get vertical style defense. And the reason why I start here is because it starts with the philosophy of how you not only coach your defense, but coach your room. A lot of what I'll be touching on will be gearing towards the defensive line, but philosophy-wise, it'll also go into the grand scheme of having a successful defense. We like to attack and get vertical, right? So everything we do is aggressive. We don't read, we don't react. Everything that we want to do is vertical to get up the field, obviously with being sound. But when you get your big guys up the field and they're able to create havoc, that's when you find the success, right? Which leads me to my next point, while being gap sound. That's also important, right? Find ways to make plays in the backfield. The struggle sometimes that you might want to, stress on or gamble with is getting vertical. Do you become ungap sound? Do you create rush lanes? But it comes down to your technique and how you do it. So I think that's important and how you coach it to make sure your guys understand while we are an aggressive style, get vertical defense, we also want to be gap sound to make sure that we're not putting anybody else or any other position in harm's way. I always believe it starts up front. I will stress that, right? It comes with recruiting. It comes in those off-season times with coaching, just to put your guys in a place to be successful when they get on the field. You have to stress as a defensive line coach, a lot of it runs through us, and we welcome that. We welcome the stress sometimes that it puts us in, but we should thrive under pressure. And that's what I implement and try to teach those guys. When it comes down to the run game, I do believe you start with a team's top runs, right? Find ways to pressure or move your front to create negative plays. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, a team may have an opening drive scripted, but when they get down to the real nitty gritty in the football game and they're relying on who their team is, right, they'll always revert back to their top run plays. So I think it's important to know what those top plays are and then find ways within your defensive scheme to attack them so that you can have some success. Putting teams in second and long and third and long will lead to being more aggressive. And I put the for sure in quotation marks because you're never for sure, but in for sure pass down situations. Second and long, third and long, obviously we got to be alert for screen. We got to be alert for draw. But getting those guys behind the chains, making it second and long and third and long puts the probability of pass to increase, right? Which then once that increases, you find more ways to be more aggressive because you know they're going to pass the ball. All right, so in pass down situations, your base pass down philosophies. We are a 3-4 defense, but I do believe when you get into pass down situations, being in a 4 down to where you have 2 edges and 2 guys inside, it increases your probabilities to get to the quarterback. It's very hard in a 3-4 defense, just relying on your 3 defensive linemen and 2 B-gap players, 4 eyes, whether they're 3s and a 0, rushing the pass. You're not going to have a super high success of getting to the quarterback, right? But I do believe playing that 3-4 base defense as a structure is a great plan to stop the run. You just have to be multiple in when you put those 4 guys on the field to go rush the passer, right? So you want to be able to rush to go get the quarterback. Get really good at games if you don't have guys to win one-on-ones. The guys that can win one-on-one, you naturally know. And the beauty of being a D-line coach is you can get out of the way a lot of times to put those guys in a successful situation, right? They just have to know when to use the moves and when to use their abilities to go rush the passer. Some of them are really good at rushing the passer. Some of them are really good at playing the run. The really, really good ones are good at doing both, right? So finding those guys that can win the one-on-ones. And if you don't have those guys, get creative so that you can run some games, right? Get the quarterback off his mark. That's as successful sometimes as getting there. When you do the study of quarterbacks and realize when a quarterback scramble, his completion rate goes down, your game plan can literally be just get the quarterback off his mark. And then obviously not allowing him to scramble is part of that, but getting him off the mark is a great place to start. If you have pass rushers on an aggressive D-line, be ready for cuts, be ready for screens. And the big one is getting chipped off the edge. Not only do they block with the 5 offensive linemen now, but if you're really, really good and you stress them out, right, they start chipping with the tight end, they start chipping with the running back. If you remember watching the Super Bowl, the Eagles put on a clinic of how you rush with 4 defensive linemen. So you try to emulate that as much as possible and equip your guys with what they will see right when they start to rush. Learn how to effectively disguise your fronts. Overload, linebackers walked up, having a bear look. There's multiple ways that you can disguise your front. Figure out a way to manipulate the offensive line and what they call as far as their block scheme, and then go attack the quarterback. The goal is getting the ball back, and I think that has to be stressed so much. It's not just about getting there. Yes, getting there is great. We're off the field, and you'll see it's always important to get off the field, but always attack the ball. The more times as a defense that you can give the offense the football, the better chance that as a team you'll go win, right? So not only is it important getting back there, but you have to emphasize attacking the ball, right? That comes with your philosophy. That comes with the drills that you work to put those guys in situations. On the quarterback, obviously be legal, watch your hands being too high, don't hit him in the helmet. But we have to stress getting the ball back and getting it out the quarterback's hand, right? And then I always stress, and I put it on my room, never let the quarterback win. It's always on the defensive line. So be really good with your rush lanes, understand where the quarterback is, and that's how you can continue to be successful and get off the field, but also attack and getting the ball back.
Before we continue, I want to tell you about something that truly matters, both for your growth as a coach and for making an impact beyond the field. Lawrence First and Goal is an incredible clinic experience that supports pediatric brain tumor research and cancer services. By purchasing a ticket, you'll get year-long access to over 100 detailed coaching presentations covering scheme, technique, culture, and more. This is one of the best coaching resources available, and every dollar goes to a great cause. Don't miss out. Visit lfgf2025.coachtube.com to get your ticket today. Now let's get back to Coach Haynes.
From that, man, we had Joe Evans invited to the East-West Shrine Bowl this year, and we had for the second year in a row the Defensive Player of the Year by Jamori Robinson. He plays our outside linebacker position. And that just credits, man, to those guys up front. We have multiple guys that had such a successful year, obviously, with all those numbers. But when you can obviously play the guys and put them in the right situations, and they have the physical ability to go do so, you do have a lot of success. And I always like to point the success of those guys out because it's always good to see. All right, we get to Sac City. All right, and we talk about the what. Great defensive lines must be able to rush the quarterback and make plays in the backfield. All right, so we get to the what. I talked about it a little bit. We finished top 5 nationally in sacks back-to-back years, 2023 and 2024. We also did the same thing in TFLs in 2023 and 2024. Over that span of time, we had 213 total TFLs, and we had 88 sacks, right? So the proof is in the pudding, right? Turn on the tape. Those guys do a great job understanding and listening to coaching. We try to put those guys in situations to go be successful. Over the span of the last 4 years, we've averaged 36.5 sacks per year. You always, if you can get into a situation, 3 to 4 sacks per game is a great number to hit. And you don't necessarily put those on paper, but I do challenge those guys based off of who we're playing up front and what I think we can go do to be successful. So those guys understanding that, getting down to the numbers of how many times they throw the ball is something that those guys can attack. And I think it's a testament to them how successful they have been doing it, right? We had a player finish top 10 nationally in sacks back-to-back years. Both players were defensive players of the years, and we have broke the sack record here at UTSA 2 times in the past 4 years. And obviously, it's a credit to what they've been able to do up front. And so we talk about the how. And this will resemble a little bit in the run game. There's so much technical stuff you can talk about as far as technique. I more so want to do the big overview. And when we get to the film, we'll kind of break down what that looks like. But BGO, we talk about so much. establish your alignment and get off the ball. All right, the more that you're in a stance to get off the rock, yes, there is a rundown stance and a pass game stance, but just getting off the ball, whether it's run down or pass down, is so important. Certain guys have to be prepared to take the double team. Certain guys have those one-on-ones. I stress winning your one-on-one so much. If there's anybody blocking you one-on-one, right, we should be able to have success in the backfield, and you just have to have the guys to go do that. When we get into the pass rush sense, we always talk about quick hips and hands. We attack out of our eyes first because that's the quickest part of your body, right? So when you deal with guys that have high pad level, a lot of times you just have to reference to their eyes. Where are you looking, right? So have your eyes on your work, but then your hand strike, and we say your feet will follow, right? But where that comes from is obviously in your hips. That's where your explosion comes from, transitions from the weight room and as well as on the field. So having great hands, being able to win on the edge, defeating the hands from the offensive lineman, try to get on you, and having some great hips, it will allow you to be successful. Obviously, you have some guys that have stiffer hips. You have to work with them in the offseason. But it brings me to my next point. They are probably speed to power guys. You still can win with speed and convert to power, right? So utilize what you have, and that breaks down to the player. I don't coach the players the same way. They all have different skill sets. So I make sure that I work with them to figure out their body, to figure out what's successful for them. And then we kind of get into the lab to figure out how we can tweak and make it better. And here are some of the simple things. There are more advanced pass rush moves, but I just try to give the basic foundation of what you can utilize for anybody to be successful. Guys that are longer on the edge, right? I always stress long arm. One arm is longer than two. Being able to establish that hand placement, there's so much counter that can come from that. The biggest one is crossing the slide. And I say cross the slide because that can happen in the run game, but it also happens in the pass game. Just feel the offensive lineman coming towards you and using the momentum, right? If they're washing you one way, you have to work against the grain. It's no different than we're on the edge. We call it a counterback inside, but you're still working off of the slide of the offensive tackle. Right. So we just use some of the same verbiage as far as crossing the slide, being able to utilize that. And then that comes into play when you talk about quarterback depth as well. So making sure those guys understand that, I think, is a big piece of rushing the passer, but also making sure we're good in the run game. Line games on there to understand quarterback depth. Rush lanes is also important. That can happen during the week. It also happens in the film room. But obviously getting a feel for where that quarterback is important. The other small piece, man, when we talk about drop back, like know where the quarterback aligns, right? Know where their steps is going to put them. I think that can help your edge guys as far as their landmarks when they're rushing. Someone that's 6'1" is going to get to the quarterback depth different than someone that's 6'3", 6'4", right? It all depends on how they come out their hips, whether they have long strides, whether they have quick steps, but the aiming point that they need to finish at is important. Sometimes it's going to be 5, sometimes it's going to be 8, right? Depending on the down and distance and just how that quarterback's mechanics are. That comes down to the film session. We can do that as coaches when we go break down the film, but being able to give that information to your guys on the edge can help them when it comes to quarterback depth and knowing when to counter, right? And then break down, like I said, the depth of the cornerback. You got to know where the counters are. Right? We say spin back, hump back, power back. That'll put you in a quarterback's lap. And obviously you can see how those stats equated in the AAC this year with the numbers.
That's a wrap on this segment with Coach Siddiq Haynes. His philosophy on attacking vertically, being gap sound, and relentlessly pursuing the football clearly drives one of the most disruptive defenses in the country. If you got something out of today's episode, and I know you did, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the Coach and Coordinator podcast. It helps us continue to bring top coaches and high-level insights your way. And remember, you can support Lawrence First and Goal and get access to 100-plus elite coaching talks at lfgf2025.coachtube.com, and that will get you year-long access to all of them. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Coach and Coordinator Network.